Okay, class, so in our pre-work, we learned a little bit about the proportions and what proportions mean according to percents. So we have our one side over here, which is called our is over of side. I'm going to go ahead and rename it our part over our whole. So our part, if you think about a regular fraction, is how many pieces are being used, and then the whole is how many pieces we actually have. So if you think about 1/4, it means that we have 4 pieces of something, but only one of them is shaded in. So we have only one of those. On this side, we have our percent side. 100 is always going to be in the denominator on this side, and then the percent always goes at the top. So let's go ahead and take a look at example 1. It says 4 is what percent of 5? I'm going to go ahead and first start by setting up my proportion. So always start with 100. I don't have a percent here. It looks like the percent is what I'm actually trying to figure out. So I'm just going to go ahead and put an X here. It says 4 is what percent of 5? Okay? So in this case, our is over of says that 4 is supposed to be on top. This is going to be our part. And 5 is on the bottom. This is going to be our whole. Now, in order to solve this, this is just a proportion. So what number multiplied by 5 will get us to 100? So multiply that by 20. And then for 4, we're going to go ahead and multiply that by 20. So as of now, we have x is equal to 80, which means that it's going to be 80%. So 4 is what percent of 5? 4 is 80% of 5. Okay, let's go on to the next example. Now, I would quickly go ahead and pause this and give this a try. So, next. 12 is what percent of 48? I'm going to once again start with my proportion and then start with my 100. It looks like the percent is what we don't know, so I'm going to go ahead and put an X here. 12 is, this is going to be our part, what percent of 48? So 48 is going to be our denominator. Okay? So, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, 48 does not go evenly into 100. I could, of course, take 100 and divide by 48 in order to figure out what I have to multiply by, but that's a lot of work. So I'm going to go ahead and try to simplify this side over here. So if I go ahead and figure out the greatest common factor of 12 and 48, that's 12. So I'm going to take 12 and divide by 12, which is 1. I'm going to take 12 and divide by 48, which is 4. And then, of course, on this side, I can't change anything because I have an unknown value. So now, it's just 4 multiplied by what number equals 100? Multiplied by 25. So then 1 multiplied by 25 is 25, so x is equal to 25%. Now, as you can see in this one, we couldn't directly get from 48 to 100, so we had to simplify in order to get our number down to a number that can go into 100 evenly. Let's go ahead and try example 3. 6 is what percent of 4? So I'm going to go ahead and, of course, start with my proportion with 100 at the bottom. The percent is what I don't know, so I'm going to go ahead and put an X over here at the percent. 6 is, this is going to be my part. And then what percent of 4? Okay. I could already see that it's 6 over 4, so it looks like I have an improper fraction. So this must mean that the percent is going to be greater than 100. So let's go ahead and see. To get from 4 to 100, I'm going to go ahead and multiply by 25. So 6 multiplied by 25 is going to give me 150. So x is going to equal to 150%. Okay? This makes sense. Is because since my numerator is greater than my denominator for 6 over 4, it only makes sense that on my percent side, my numerator is greater than my denominator as well. So, let's go ahead and move on to the last section, which is word problems. Now, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing, set up a proportion, start with our 100, and then fill in along the way. Julian needs to run a total of 20 miles in a marathon. He ran 18 miles last time and came up short. What percent of the marathon did he run the last time he ran a marathon? So, let's go ahead and set up our proportion. Start with 100. So, it says he needs to run a total of 20 miles. So, if this is my total, then I know that this number must go in the denominator. So, there's a total of 20 miles. He ran 18 last time and came up short. So he was only able to run a part of the marathon. And the part that he ran was 18 miles. Okay? Now, at this point, I need to figure out what percent of 20 is 18. Now, in order to do that, I have to think to myself, what does it take to get from 20 to 100? And it looks like I'm going to have to go ahead and multiply by 5. So 20 times 5 is equal to 100. So 18 multiplied by 5 is going to give me 90. So x is equal to 90%. Okay, let's go ahead and try one more now. Another word problem. Howard is 5 feet tall. Jacob is 4 feet tall. What percent of Howard's height is Jacob's? Okay, so go ahead, set up my proportion. 100. The percent is what I'm trying to figure out, so I'm going to go ahead and put an X there. It says Howard is 5 feet tall, Jacob is 4 feet tall. What percent of Howard's height is Jacob's? What percent of Howard's height is Jacob's? So I'm going to go ahead and, since it's talking about Howard's height, I'm trying to figure out what his percent is. So, well, in relation to his percent. So he's going to go in the denominator. So there's going to be a 5 over here, which represents Howard's height. I need to figure out what percent of Howard's height is Jacob's height. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 4 at the top in order to represent Jacob's height. Now, to get from 5 to 100, I have to go ahead and multiply by 20. So then 4 now, multiplied by 20, is going to give me 80. Alright, so this is saying that Jacob's height is 80% of Howard's. Okay, and that's it.